The trophy comes home, and the West doesn't sleep. The moment after a premiership win is meant to feel like a freeze frame, like the city pauses, just long enough for you to breathe it in. But with Canterbury, it never stops moving, because the Bulldogs didn't just win a premiership in 2004, they detonated one. And the fans? They didn't go home. They went looking for each other. It spills onto the streets. Belmore didn't celebrate quietly. Belmore celebrated like it'd been holding its breath for years and finally exhaled. Cars crawling up and down the suburb with horns leaning like they were being welded down. People standing up on utes. Burnouts that didn't just stop at one quick one. They went all night. And the closer you got to Canterbury Leagues Club, the louder it got. Not because the speakers were bigger, but because the people were. It was the kind of night where everyone becomes family. Strangers hugging strangers, kids wide-eyed in the passenger seat, watching grown men cry and laugh at the same time. And the stories from that night, they became folklore. The kind of story that you hear so many times it becomes part of the club DNA. One of them goes like this. The celebrations got so wild, the Leagues Club basically shut. Not close at midnight shut, not sorry we're full shut down. The team bus arrives back, the place is fenced off, and no one's supposed to get in. But the Bulldogs fans, they don't really do what they're supposed to. So you have blokes trying to find their way around. Go around the front, it's blocked off. Go around the side, it's blocked off. How are you going to get in? Every Bulldogs fan knows. The back fence. And for the people who made it through, that wasn't just a party. That was the dream. A premiership celebration where the line between player and fan disappears, where it's not them and us, it's all of us. And there's another layer to it too, because not everyone who earned that title got to be out on the grass there to claim it. Steve Price, the captain, missed the grand final through injury, so we had to watch it unfold knowing it was his last season at the club, knowing that the trophy he had chased for years was finally there, and yet he physically couldn't be a part of the last chapter. And then comes the kind of moment that tells you what the 2004 group was really made of. Jonathan Thurston hands Price his premiership ring. No cameras needed, no speech, just a gesture that says, "You're our skipper." So when Belmore burned all through the night, it wasn't just celebrating the win. It was celebrating the feeling that the Bulldogs had finally become in what their fans had believed they were. A powerhouse, a standard, a benchmark. And that's why the hangover that followed hit so hard. Because the day after triumph is when you realise something terrifying. Winning is hard, but staying on top, that's harder. And Canterbury's going to find that out in a terrible way. The first warning shot didn't even happen in the premiership. It happened overseas. The Bulldogs go to England as premiers for the World Club Challenge, stepping into yet another test, another proving ground. And for a while, it looked like the trip might turn into a parade. Leeds jumped out hard, at one point Canterbury staring at a scoreline that feels unreal. Then the Bulldogs surge. 4 tries in a furious burst, and suddenly, the game feels alive again. One of those nights where you can hear belief coming back through the TV. But the final blow was a drop goal late. Leeds 39, Bulldogs 32. Not a disaster, worse. A message. The gap between being the best and staying the best is razor thin. And 2005 becomes a year where Canterbury keep trying to find the same rhythm with a slightly different band. You see flashes, moments that look like the Dogs, that familiar aggression, that willingness to scrap, but the season never quite locks in. Then comes the night that feels like the warning light on the dash. You don't forget the first time you're blown off the road. But the real collapse doesn't happen in one loss. It happens in a stretch where the club gets hit over and over and it feels like it can't get back up. Round 23, Parramatta 56, Bulldogs 4. And round 24, West Tigers 54 and the Bulldogs 2. Those aren't just losses. Those are the scorelines that would turn the whole competition into judge and jury. And when you finally think, surely the bleeding will stop now, Penrith finished the job. 28-6. Season effectively done. The Bulldogs fans had just lived the greatest night of their lives. Now they're watching the club take its first steps into the wilderness. That's the first shock. The crown doesn't protect you. Then comes 2006, and suddenly, it's like Canterbury remember who they are. They open the year with a tight loss, but then answer it with a statement. Round 2, West Tigers come to town, and Hazem El Mesri goes nuclear. 4 tries, 9 goals. Bulldogs 47, Tigers 12. That's the old Bulldogs we know, the one that makes you feel safe again. But even in the good months, the warning lights keep flashing. Round 3 in Newcastle, the Knights put 46 on them. The Bulldogs only scored 22. A reminder that this team can be hurt and hurt badly. And later in the year, Brisbane do something even scarier. Round 24, Broncos 30, Bulldogs 0. A shutout, a clean sheet, like someone had found the blueprint pinned to the wall. Still, Canterbury are good enough to fight their way to a top finish. Finals week 1, they roll Canberra 30-12, and they buy themselves a week off. So the belief comes back. 1 win away from the grand final, 1 win away from dragging Belmore into the streets again. At half-time of the preliminary final, they're leading Brisbane 20-6. And then the second half happens. Brisbane score over 31 unanswered points. The Bulldogs don't just lose a lead, they lose the whole night. That's the second shock. Sometimes the fall comes last. Heading into 2007, the pressure shifts. The question isn't just, can Canterbury win again? It's, can they handle the moments when everything tilts? By 2007, one name sits at the center of the Bulldogs universe. Sonny Bill Williams. Young, explosive, built like the future. Because keeping Sonny isn't just about footy. It's about belief. It's about identity. It's about telling the fans, we're building around this. But 2007 doesn't start with a headline, it starts with a moment. Round 1 in Newcastle, 4 minutes in, Sonny Bill is sent off for a high shot that knocks Andrew Johns out for the game. Canterbury are down to 12, and somehow they still lead 24-8 at half-time. And then it slips. The Knights chase them down 25-24. A 1-point loss sometimes feels like 10. A week later, Penrith smashed them 40-10. 2 rounds in, and the season already feels like it's wobbling. And then they answer back in round 4. Souths come in flying, and the Bulldogs belt them. 34-10 in front of a massive Homebush crowd. The pattern is set. The lows are ugly, the highs are electric. And when Canterbury hit their best stretch, it's not quiet, it's violent. They go into Brookvale and knock off Manly, 27-8, ending a long Sea Eagle streak at home. They belted the Roosters 38-6, with Sonny Bill putting on one of those performances making you stare at the screen and laugh. They turn around to destroy Canberra 52-4. Finals footy suddenly feels possible again. And then comes one of the best wins of the era. Brisbane in Brisbane. A 25-24 thriller decided by a Brett Sherwin field goal from way out. That's Belmore belief? Travelling. But the warning lights are still there. Later in the year, Melbourne come to Sydney and put 38 on Canterbury. The kind of loss that tells you September won't forgive you. And in the finals, Parramatta ended it. 25-6. Sonny leaves the season with a fractured forearm, and the club walks into the off-season with a bigger fear than any scoreboard. What happens if the future doesn't stay? This is where it starts to hurt differently. Because losses in September hurt, but losing the men who built your September, that hangs around for years. And the next chapter is where loyalty gets tested in ways Bulldogs fans never forget.